Human anxiety, often perceived as an overwhelming internal adversary, frequently serves as a profound communicative signal emanating from the deeper strata of the psyche. Carl Jung, through his extensive work on the unconscious, posited that the persistent suppression of these intrinsic messages invariably intensifies inner turmoil, manifesting as chronic worry and psychological disquiet. To navigate this internal landscape and achieve enduring tranquility, one must engage directly with these unconscious communications, thereby transforming anxiety from a relentless burden into a catalyst for profound self-understanding. The initial step in this transformative process involves rendering anxiety tangible. This emotional state, frequently abstract and nebulous, represents one of the most arduous burdens for the human mind. The relentless pressures of daily existence, the inherent uncertainties of the future, and the indelible imprints of past experiences coalesce to fuel a pervasive worry, often confined within our innermost being. Jungian psychology, however, reframes anxiety not merely as an unwelcome emotion to be circumvented, but as a significant phenomenon ripe for comprehension and constructive redirection. The fundamental objective, therefore, is to concretize this anxiety. The unconscious, according to Jung, is not merely a repository of forgotten memories or repressed emotions. It is a dynamic, sentient lexicon of symbols and archetypal imagery. Any attempt to merely eradicate anxiety will, paradoxically, only amplify its presence. Instead of futilely contending with it, one must discern the specific message it strives to impart. This requires perceiving anxiety not as an ephemeral thought or a fleeting sensation, but as a discernible entity, endowing it with a form. Consider its appearance. Would it manifest as an enigmatic shadow, a persistent, murmuring voice, or perhaps a vulnerable child lost within a vast, dark expanse? The potent efficacy of this methodology lies in converting an abstract emotional state into a palpable, concrete presence. When anxiety is transmuted into a visible, tactile entity, a significant degree of control is immediately established. This interpretation of the unconscious's communique empowers the individual to guide it, rather than allowing it to dictate the internal narrative. Jung emphasized that fostering a deliberate dialogue between the conscious and unconscious realms constitutes the most efficacious pathway to resolving deeply embedded internal conflicts. Through this deliberate engagement, one does not merely observe anxiety, one converses with it. Pose direct inquiries. What is your purpose here? What insight do you wish to convey? The initial responses may appear illogical or devoid of rational coherence, yet it is crucial to remember that the unconscious communicates through symbolic language, not linear logic. Jung contended that the more expansive the human mind becomes in its receptivity to the unconscious, the closer it approaches spiritual integrity. Confronting anxiety, acknowledging its intrinsic existence, and earnestly seeking to comprehend its underlying message progressively transmute fear and alleviate psychological burdens. This process should be embraced as an exploratory journey of discovery, rather than an adversarial confrontation. Anxiety is not an malevolent entity seeking harm. It is, rather, an inherent opportunity to restore inner equilibrium. When granted significance and engaged with actively, anxiety ceases to be a force that governs existence and instead becomes an energy that is consciously directed. As Jung profoundly articulated, he who does not confront his unconscious lives it as his fate. Once anxiety is successfully conceptualized as a concrete entity, the subsequent crucial phase involves engaging in direct communication with it. This proposition might initially appear unconventional. How can one initiate a dialogue with an emotion previously constructed within the confines of one's own consciousness? Yet, it is vital to recall that the unconscious communicates primarily through images and symbols, transcending the conventional boundaries of thought and spoken language. Consequently, envisioning anxiety as a distinct character, a specific entity, or even a resonant voice, and then initiating discourse with it, represents one of the most potent avenues for accessing the profound depths of the unconscious. Jung maintained that emotions which are actively suppressed never truly dissipate. Instead, they are merely relegated to the unconscious, from which they invariably resurface with augmented intensity. The prolonged absence of dialogue, the consistent act of ignoring these inner components, only serves to amplify their coercive influence upon the conscious mind. The authentic pathway to understanding the unconscious necessitates the establishment of a direct, sustained dialogue. This exchange facilitates the uncovering of those aspects of the inner world that have been systematically repressed. Anxiety, fundamentally, is not an enemy. It functions as a messenger, earnestly attempting to convey an imperative message. If this message remains unheeded, its initial whisper can rapidly escalate into an insistent clamor. Consider an exercise. Close your eyes and visualize anxiety standing directly before you. Approach it. Observe its form, its demeanor. Is it static or in motion? How does it perceive you? It might manifest as a human silhouette, a shadowy presence, an animalistic form, or an abstract configuration. Then, articulate your questions. Why are you here? What specific warning do you bear? What prompted your manifestation? Initial silence may ensue, yet perseverance is paramount. Jung consistently asserted that, with patient engagement, the unconscious gradually reveals itself and begins to respond through a complex tapestry of symbols. This deliberate dialogue with the unconscious not only deepens the comprehension of anxiety but also significantly diminishes its authoritative hold. Anxiety frequently thrives upon the unknown. As one begins to decipher the symbolic language originating from the unconscious, a profound sense of control is invariably established. For instance, one might discern a pattern of recurring fears within the conscious mind. It is plausible that the contemporary anxiety is an echo of an unresolved apprehension from early childhood. At this juncture, the critical task is to decode the authentic message concealed beneath the layers of anxious apprehension. Perhaps the mind is signaling a situation necessitating immediate alteration, or it may be an invitation to acknowledge a truth that has been unconsciously rejected. Jung considered the cultivation of internal dialogue as one of the most efficacious methods for achieving a profound state of self-accord. Instead of perceiving anxiety as a formidable adversary, endeavor to understand its intrinsic nature. Rather than experiencing it as an oppressive burden, embrace it as a sagacious guide endeavoring to impart essential wisdom. Through this sustained communication, one begins to recognize that fears are often merely shadows, and that reaching the unconscious demands connection, not conflict. Remember, anxiety need not be a force that governs your existence. Once its voice is heard and its message understood, its power over you dissipates, and true freedom emerges. Upon successfully engaging with anxiety in a tangible dialogue, the subsequent imperative step involves attentively discerning its responses. It is crucial to recognize that anxiety, akin to other manifestations of the unconscious, does not communicate through direct verbal articulation. Its language is unveiled through a rich tapestry of symbols, profound feelings, and evocative images. To genuinely hear its answers, to comprehend and interpret them, one must cultivate an open receptivity to this distinct form of communication from the deeper self. One of Carl Jung's most pivotal contributions to psychology was his demonstration that the human mind possesses a far more intricate and profound architecture than mere rational thought suggests. The psyche is not a mechanistic apparatus operating solely at the conscious level. It is also profoundly shaped by powerful symbols and archetypes originating from the unconscious. In the endeavor to comprehend the answers conveyed by anxiety, one must therefore be prepared to encounter these symbols. A vivid image might materialize in the mind, a scene from childhood might vividly resurface, an ineffable feeling might emerge, or a recurring metaphor might begin to permeate one's thoughts. The unconscious, by its very nature, is not a direct narrator. It typically speaks in enigmatic and elusive terms. When endeavoring to interpret these responses, it is imperative not to judge them solely by their superficial meaning. The image, the word, the feeling, these are intricate clues offered by the unconscious. As Jung emphasized, the rational mind may not immediately apprehend the full import of these symbols, but an intuitive attempt to grasp and feel their essence will profoundly strengthen the intrinsic connection with one's inner world. In considering the reactions evoked by anxiety, one might ask, what specific emotions does this symbol elicit within me? Which events in my life resonate with this particular feeling? Where else have I experienced such a sensation? The voice of anxiety can sometimes be the distant echo of a deeply buried trauma from the past, or it might function as a prescient warning attempting to bring to conscious awareness a truth that is currently being internally resisted. These insights may manifest through nocturnal dreams, during moments of reflective journaling, or through sudden, profound epiphanies. One cannot coerce the unconscious into yielding an immediate answer, but by providing it ample space and patient attention, it will commence its communication according to its own intrinsic rhythm. Jung posited that an individual can achieve profound inner wholeness only through a healthy and dynamic dialogue between the conscious and unconscious. If one dismisses the messages conveyed by anxiety, if one pushes them away without genuine attempts at comprehension, the unconscious will inevitably intensify its pressure. However, by actively listening to its voice and endeavoring to interpret its communique, the attainment of internal equilibrium becomes significantly more accessible. For anxiety is not an enemy, it is an integral aspect of the self, striving to protect and warn, albeit sometimes through seemingly convoluted means. When truly listened to and comprehended, anxiety ceases to be a force that controls one's existence and instead transforms into a guide, enhancing self-awareness. Only then do the portals to profound inner peace begin to unlock. Having rendered anxiety tangible, engaged in dialogue with it, and attentively listened to its intricate responses, the subsequent critical phase involves consciously expressing these nascent feelings and insights. When emotions remain unarticulated and coalesce within the conscious mind, they progressively become more burdensome, complex, and recalcitrant to control. Conversely, when these emotions find a medium for expression, that is, when the potent energy accumulated within the unconscious is deliberately channeled, the coercive impact of anxiety diminishes precipitously. It is at this juncture that Carl Jung's profound appreciation for art, writing, and various forms of creative self-expression becomes particularly salient. The unconscious manifests not solely through verbal constructs but equally through imagery, symbolism, and diverse artistic expressions. Therefore, one of the most efficacious means of articulating one's inner world is to transmute anxiety into a concrete, externalized form. This can be achieved through written expression. Maintaining a journal provides a structured outlet to verbalize feelings, thereby liberating the mind from the recursive loops of anxious thought. Writing intrinsically aids in organizing the inherent chaos of the unconscious, offering an external vantage point from which to examine one's thoughts. Through the act of inscription, one can often discern the authentic, underlying etiology of their distress. Sentences that initially appear disjointed or nonsensical frequently begin to unravel the complex knots within the inner world over time. Yet, writing is not the sole medium. As Jung underscored, artistic creation stands as one of the most potent forms of unconscious expression. Engaging in drawing, painting, sculpting, or channeling emotions through musical composition are all highly effective methodologies for externalizing the energy of the unconscious. The intrinsic value here lies not in the artistic merit or technical proficiency of the endeavor, but in the uninhibited, complete expression of one's internal emotional landscape. Transcribing the images that spontaneously arise in the mind onto paper facilitates a clearer perception of the symbols presented by the unconscious. Jung asserted that directing unconscious energy into a conscious creative process constitutes a pivotal step toward achieving psychological wholeness. This method not only attenuates the oppressive influence of anxiety but also cultivates a deeper, more nuanced understanding of its underlying message. The act of expressing feelings inherently signifies their acknowledgement and acceptance, for every individual must ultimately confront all that has been suppressed. Unexpressed emotions invariably accumulate within the inner world, manifesting in diverse ways, through physical stress, chronic worry, and even through the symbolic narratives of dreams. The unconscious relentlessly attempts to convey its message. However, by consciously expressing these emotions, the pervasive pressure of anxiety is alleviated, rendering it manageable. Expressing feelings is a profound affirmation to the unconscious. I hear you. As Carl Jung maintained, a human being can become spiritually free only when he or she accepts himself or herself as a whole being. Rather than perceiving anxiety as an intractable problem, one should endeavor to uncover the inherent messages it contains. When the inner world is creatively expressed, anxiety ceases to be a controlling force and transforms into an energy that is consciously directed, propelling one closer to mental liberation. Following the comprehensive internal process of making anxiety tangible, engaging in dialogue, listening to its responses, and expressing the emergent insights, a profound internal shift inevitably commences. However, for this transformative journey to reach its full culmination, an additional, crucial step is required: arriving at an informed, conscious conclusion. Without the subsequent integration of this extensive internal work into a real, actionable understanding, the cyclical patterns within the unconscious are prone to perpetual repetition. Therefore, at this stage, it becomes imperative to consciously evaluate the acquired information and seamlessly integrate it into daily life. Carl Jung's perspective dictated that genuine internal transformation does not merely occur through immersion in the unconscious. Authentic change is actualized by interpreting the messages emanating from the unconscious at a conscious level and then applying these interpretations to one's everyday existence. Hence, one must reflect. What was anxiety truly striving to communicate? What specific messages were received during the sustained dialogue? What profound awareness emerged through the act of emotional expression? These insights must be meticulously reviewed and consciously interpreted. The unconscious communicated through a symbolic lexicon, and the task now is to decipher its profound language and determine the subsequent course of action. Initially, it is essential to ascertain the authentic root cause of the anxiety. Frequently, our anxieties possess far deeper origins than initially perceived. The immediate concern might not merely be a singular event, but rather an echo of a deeply embedded childhood fear or an unaddressed past trauma. By accessing the core essence of one's anxiety, the message it seeks to convey becomes unequivocally clear. Consider anxiety as a sophisticated compass. It is not an adversary leading astray, but rather an intrinsic guide unconsciously directing one toward a vital truth. The responsibility then lies in understanding the path indicated by this internal guidance and making an informed, deliberate decision. This stage necessitates entering a process of profound internal acceptance. It may prove challenging to confront precisely what anxiety is highlighting. Yet, Jung asserted that for an individual to achieve psychological wholeness, they must courageously confront their shadow, those aspects of the self that have been systematically suppressed and consciously averted. One might identify a personal trait that is difficult to accept, or recognize a recurring life situation that perpetually engenders stress, demanding a fundamental alteration. Here, a conscious decision must be made. What will be done with this newfound awareness? How will it be seamlessly integrated into one's life? Imagine gazing into a mirror and encountering the most intimate aspects of one's own being. The choice then presents itself: to reject what is observed, or to embrace it with profound acceptance. When the message conveyed by anxiety is accepted, it can then be transformed. Now, instead of permitting it to exert control, one can move forward with heightened understanding and a profound sense of self-acceptance. An informed conclusion transcends mere recognition of anxiety's nature. It fundamentally involves making a conscious decision about how to proceed. At this culminating stage, to complete the internal process, ask, how has this awareness fundamentally altered me? How do I now perceive myself and my life? When anxiety is reframed as a sagacious teacher rather than an intractable problem, authentic personal transformation begins. As Carl Jung articulated, true freedom is attained when an individual possesses the capacity to illuminate their own internal darkness. At this juncture, anxiety no longer exerts control. Instead, one assumes authoritative control over their anxiety, marking the initiation of a genuine pathway to profound inner peace. To fundamentally penetrate the genesis of anxiety and authentically comprehend the profound messages it endeavors to impart, one must invariably turn to the realm of dreams. Dreams constitute one of the most potent and direct manifestations of the unconscious, communicating through a rich tapestry of symbols deeply embedded within our psyche and unveiling realities that the conscious mind is often incapable of perceiving. According to Jung, the human mind is not exclusively formed by conscious thoughts. It is also profoundly shaped by the archetypal images and symbols accumulated within the collective unconscious. Dreams serve as a crucial conduit, allowing these deeper truths to surface, thereby assisting us in comprehending the latent dynamics underpinning our anxieties. A significant proportion of our anxieties are direct reflections of fears, unresolved conflicts, and unaddressed issues that have been systematically suppressed within our unconscious. Numerous emotions that we unconsciously disregard in waking life, or actively avoid contemplating, or are unable to process at a conscious level, find vivid expression within the dreamscape. Consequently, dream analysis stands as one of the most efficacious methodologies for addressing our intrinsic psychological challenges. Dreams do not communicate overtly. Rather, they transmit their messages through intricate metaphors and nuanced symbols. Carl Jung posited that dreams are nourished not merely by individual experience but also by the vast repository of the collective unconscious. Thus, the images encountered in dreams are not simply fortuitous scenes from one's personal history. They can also contain universal symbols derived from the collective unconscious of humanity. For instance, a body of water observed in a dream might symbolize an immersion into the profound depths of one's unconscious, whereas a bridge could represent a pivotal transition in one's life or the imperative to reconcile two antithetical paths. However, in deciphering the meaning of dream symbols, it is crucial to interpret them in relation to one's unique inner world, rather than relying on generalized paradigms. Recurring thematic elements within dreams, which might remain unacknowledged in conscious thought, can offer invaluable insights into the specific fears that demand attention. If a particular situation, individual, or location persistently appears in dreams, it serves as a clear indication that the unconscious is endeavoring to establish communication. By diligently attending to one's dreams, it becomes possible to access the root causes of anxiety and unearth its authentic message. If one frequently experiences the sensation of being lost within a dream, it may signify that the conscious mind has lost its sense of direction and is actively seeking internal guidance. The emotional tenor of dreams can provide profound clarity regarding the depth and nature of subconscious anxieties. Dream analysis is not confined solely to deciphering their meaning. Simultaneously, one must ascertain how to integrate the information furnished by the unconscious into daily life. Dreams provide guidance, but it is the conscious mind that bears the responsibility for interpreting these insights and enacting corresponding measures. Once a dream's message is deciphered, one must contemplate how to effectively utilize the information it has provided. If one consistently encounters obstacles within dreams, it might signify the presence of an intrinsic barrier in waking life that requires overcoming. If dreams frequently revisit past memories, it may be an opportune moment to confront and reconcile with the past. According to Carl Jung, dream analysis is an indispensable component of the individuation process, the journey toward psychological self-realization. Dreams serve as a mirror reflecting our anxieties and conflicts within the unconscious. The task, then, is to gaze into this mirror, comprehend what is observed, and leverage this knowledge for conscious transformation. By analyzing dreams, one can uncover the source of internal fears, courageously confront them, and ultimately gain awareness and control over anxieties, rather than allowing them to dictate one's existence. Through this disciplined practice, one learns to navigate the profound waters of the unconscious and achieve a heightened level of self-awareness, enabling the transformation of anxieties rather than being controlled by them. A substantial portion of our anxieties and internal conflicts originates from the inherent discrepancy between our authentic self and the perceived self we believe we ought to embody. Each individual consistently performs a specific societal role, adheres to predefined expectations, and accentuates particular facets of their personality while systematically suppressing others, all in an endeavor to secure acceptance from their immediate environment. It is at this juncture that one of Carl Jung's most pivotal concepts, the persona, becomes critically relevant. The persona represents the psychological mask we consciously adopt when interacting within society. This mask can manifest in myriad ways, adapting to our professional life, familial relationships, and diverse social milieus, thereby shaping our perceived identity. However, the persona does not invariably reflect our true, intrinsic self. Conversely, it can, at times, alienate us from our authentic essence. The persona is undeniably essential for societal survival and acceptance, given that human nature inherently necessitates communal existence. The fundamental issue arises when an individual becomes entirely identified with their persona. If this social mask is completely assimilated, and we erroneously believe it to be our true identity, a pervasive internal conflict begins to emerge. For instance, we might systematically suppress our genuine emotions to project an external image of strength, success, or unwavering control. Alternatively, we might deliberately ignore our own desires, fears, and primal instincts in order to conform to the expectations of those around us. Such a scenario inevitably fosters the development of the shadow, an accumulation within the unconscious that ultimately manifests as debilitating anxiety, chronic stress, and even profound depression. This brings us to Carl Jung's complementary concept of the shadow. The shadow comprises those aspects of ourselves that are concealed within the unconscious, systematically repressed, and which we adamantly refuse to acknowledge. We reject those parts of our being that we perceive as flawed or weak, in an effort to embrace the good and acceptable behaviors instilled by societal norms and familial upbringing. These suppressed aspects can forcefully erupt to the surface in the form of sudden paroxysms of anger, inexplicable bouts of anxiety, or even self-sabotaging behaviors. Can true transcendence of anxiety be achieved without a profound understanding of one's shadow? The unequivocal answer is no. According to Jung, an individual can attain genuine psychological wholeness only through the conscious recognition and courageous confrontation of their shadow. Instead of suppressing the shadow or attempting to evade its presence, we are compelled to comprehend it and reconcile with its existence. For the shadow contains not only our perceived darker inclinations but also an immense repository of undeveloped potential that remains largely unacknowledged. Consequently, rather than viewing the shadow as an adversary, Jung advocated for the establishment of a conscious, respectful relationship with it. To discern one's shadow, one can diligently observe situations and emotions that induce the greatest discomfort or internal resistance. The knowledge of one's shadow inherently implies a deeper, more profound understanding of the self. If one lives exclusively through the persona, existence will inevitably remain superficial, leading to a profound loss of inner peace. However, by consciously acknowledging and accepting the shadow, one embarks on the path toward becoming a psychologically integrated and complete individual. To truly comprehend the genesis of anxiety and emancipate oneself from its grip, one must delve not merely into conscious thoughts but also into the profound depths of the unconscious. When a harmonious balance is established between the persona and the shadow, one begins to live in profound alignment with their authentic essence, rather than merely conforming to the expectations of others. At this critical juncture, anxiety ceases to be an oppressive force that dictates one's life. Instead, it transforms into a sagacious guide for profound internal transformation. Authentic freedom is ultimately realized through the comprehensive acceptance of all intrinsic aspects of the self.